Most people wait for life to change before they change themselves. They wait for confidence to appear, for motivation to arrive, for the right moment to finally feel ready. But life doesn't respond to waiting. It responds to identity. It responds to how you move, how you decide, and how you carry yourself when nothing is guaranteed. Acting as if is not pretending, it is choosing who you become before the proof shows up. When you act as if you are disciplined, life tests you with responsibility. When you act as if you are strong, life pushes you to grow stronger. When you act as if you respect yourself, life rearranges the way people treat you. This audiobook is about stepping into that identity shift. About understanding that once you change how you show up, life has no option but to meet you there and rebuild you from the inside out. Chapter 1. Why Identity Comes Before Results. Most people chase results without ever questioning who they are being while they chase them. They want success, confidence, discipline, and change, but they still move through life with the identity of someone who hesitates, avoids discomfort, and waits for permission. This is where most people fail before they even begin. Results do not appear first and then change you. Identity comes first and then produces results. The way you see yourself silently dictates the decisions you make, the standards you tolerate, and the actions you repeat. If you see yourself as inconsistent, life will confirm it. If you see yourself as powerless, life will reinforce it. Your identity is the blueprint from which your future is built. Until that blueprint changes, no external effort can sustain long-term transformation. This is why temporary motivation fades and habits collapse. They are not supported by a strong sense of identity. When identity shifts, behavior follows naturally, and when behavior changes consistently, results become inevitable rather than forced. Identity is not what you say you are. It is what you repeatedly prove through action. Every decision you make casts a vote for the person you believe yourself to be. When you avoid effort, you reinforce the identity of avoidance. When you delay action, you strengthen the identity of hesitation. Over time, these choices harden into self-image. And once something becomes part of how you see yourself, your mind will fight to protect it, even if it is holding you back. This is why people sabotage their own progress. Success threatens the old identity. Growth challenges familiar patterns. The mind prefers consistency over improvement. Understanding this is critical because it reveals why results alone never change people. A new job, a new body, or a new opportunity will eventually collapse if the identity behind it remains unchanged. Identity is the root. Results are the fruit. You cannot change the fruit without changing the root. Life responds to who you are being, not who you hope to become. It does not reward wishes or intentions. It responds to behavior that reflects identity. When you carry yourself like someone who takes responsibility, life gives you responsibility. When you show up like someone who respects their time, life presents opportunities that demand discipline. This is not coincidence. It is alignment. Life mirrors the identity you project through your actions. That is why acting as if works. Not because you are pretending, but because you are declaring a new identity through behavior. And behavior is the language life understands. The moment you start acting like the person you want to become, even before results appear, life begins rearranging itself around that decision. It tests you, it challenges you, it demands proof. And in responding to those tests, you grow into the identity you chose. Most people believe confidence comes from success, but the truth is the opposite. Confidence comes from self-trust, and self-trust is built by acting in alignment with your chosen identity. Each time you do what the disciplined version of you would do, confidence increases. Each time you avoid it, confidence erodes. Confidence is not an emotion, it is a memory. A memory of keeping promises to yourself. This is why identity must come before results. Without identity, action feels forced. With identity, action feels natural. You are no longer trying to change yourself. You are expressing who you have decided to be. And when action becomes expression instead of effort, consistency becomes inevitable. Identity also determines your tolerance for discomfort. The person who sees themselves as resilient interprets struggle as training. The person who sees themselves as fragile interprets struggle as a threat. The same difficulty produces completely different outcomes based on identity. This is why two people can face the same challenge and emerge as entirely different versions of themselves. Identity shapes perception. Perception shapes response. Response shapes destiny. When you change your identity, discomfort no longer feels like something to escape. It becomes something to use. And this shift alone can rebuild an entire life. Your habits are not random. They are aligned with who you believe you are. A person who identifies as disciplined does not rely on motivation. A person who identifies as responsible does not wait to feel ready. A person who identifies as focused does not argue with distractions. These behaviors are not heroic. They are normal for that identity. When you try to build habits without changing identity, you are constantly fighting yourself. When identity shifts, habits follow with far less resistance. This is why lasting change feels effortless once identity is aligned. You are no longer forcing discipline, you are being disciplined. Identity also defines your standards, and standards define your life. What you tolerate becomes your reality. When you raise your identity, your standards rise automatically. You stop accepting excuses. You stop negotiating with weakness. You stop settling for partial effort, not because you are being harsh, but because it no longer fits who you believe you are. This internal shift is more powerful than any external pressure. You do not need to be pushed when your identity pulls you forward. Life will always test a new identity. The moment you decide to become someone stronger, life introduces resistance. This is not punishment, it is confirmation. Resistance is how life asks, "Are you serious?" Each time you respond in alignment with your identity, it becomes stronger. Each time you retreat, it weakens. Identity is not chosen once, it is reinforced daily, through actions so small they seem insignificant, yet powerful enough to shape your future. When identity changes, results become a side effect rather than the goal. You stop chasing outcomes and start embodying values. You stop forcing progress and start living it. The pressure lifts. The confusion fades. Direction becomes clear. You are no longer asking who you should be. You have decided. This is why identity always comes before results, because the person you become determines the life you build. And once you understand that, you stop waiting for change and start becoming it. Chapter 2. Acting as if is not pretending it's deciding. Acting as if is often misunderstood as pretending, but pretending is rooted in insecurity, while deciding is rooted in commitment. Pretending seeks validation from others, while deciding seeks alignment with the future you have chosen. When you act as if, you are not lying to yourself or the world. You are declaring a decision about who you are becoming and allowing your actions to lead the way. Life does not respond to what you hope will happen. It responds to what you consistently demonstrate. Acting as if is a way of stepping into responsibility before comfort arrives. It is choosing to behave like the person you respect, even when your emotions have not caught up yet. This decision sends a powerful signal to your mind and to life itself. You are no longer waiting, you are moving, and once movement begins, momentum follows. Most people stay stuck because they believe they must feel different before they act differently. They wait for confidence before showing courage, for clarity before committing, for motivation before discipline. Acting as if reverses this order. It understands that feelings are followers, not leaders. When you act with intention, your emotions begin to realign. Confidence grows after action, not before it. Discipline becomes easier once it is practiced, not imagined. Acting as if is deciding to let behavior shape belief, instead of letting fear shape behavior. This decision is uncomfortable at first because it challenges the identity you have been protecting. But discomfort is a sign that change is happening. You are stepping out of the old self and into something unfamiliar. That unfamiliarity is not danger, it is growth. Acting as if requires honesty. You cannot act as if you are disciplined while continuing to lie to yourself. You cannot act as if you respect yourself while tolerating what drains you. This decision demands integrity. Your actions must match the identity you claim. This is what separates deciding from pretending. Pretending collapses under pressure. Deciding strengthens under pressure. When you decide, you accept responsibility for the standards you set. You stop performing and start embodying. You do not need applause or permission. You only need consistency. And consistency transforms identity faster than any external achievement ever could. When you act as if, life begins to test you, not to punish you, but to confirm your commitment. If you act as if you are focused, distractions appear. If you act as if you are disciplined, temptations increase. If you act as if you are strong, challenges grow heavier. These tests are not obstacles, they are invitations to become what you declared. Each time you respond in alignment with your decision, the identity solidifies. Each time you retreat, the old identity regains ground. Acting as if is not a one-time performance. It is a daily reaffirmation of who you choose to be. The mind initially resists acting as if because it feels unnatural. But what feels natural is simply what is familiar. Familiarity is not truth, it is repetition. When you begin acting in new ways, the discomfort you feel is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that you are rewriting patterns. Over time, what once felt forced becomes automatic. The new behavior becomes the new normal. This is how identity shifts at the deepest level. You stop trying to change. You simply live differently. Acting as if also changes how others respond to you. People do not react to your intentions. They react to your energy, your boundaries, and your consistency. When you carry yourself with self-respect, others adjust. When you move with discipline, opportunities follow. Not because the world is fair, but because clarity attracts alignment. Acting as if reshapes your environment by reshaping how you show up within it. Deciding who you are also simplifies your choices. When identity is clear, decisions become easier. You stop debating with yourself. You ask one question: what would the person I've decided to be do here? This clarity removes confusion and hesitation. Life becomes less chaotic because your inner direction is stable. Acting as if is not arrogance. It is humility. It accepts that you are not there yet, but refuses to stay where you are. It honors the future you enough to act on their behalf today. This is one of the highest forms of self-respect. Eventually, the gap between acting and being disappears. You are no longer acting as if. You simply are. And when that happens, life no longer resists you. It responds. This is the power of deciding. Once you decide who you are, life has no choice but to rebuild itself around that decision. Chapter 3. How Behavior Rewrites the Mind. The mind is not changed by thoughts alone. It is reshaped by behavior. What you repeatedly do becomes what you repeatedly believe. Every action sends a message to your brain about who you are, what you are capable of, and what you should expect from life. When you act with discipline, the mind learns discipline. When you act with avoidance, the mind learns fear. This is why waiting to think differently rarely works. The mind follows evidence, and behavior is the strongest evidence you can give it. You do not convince yourself through words, you convince yourself through action. Over time, the brain adapts to what you practice most. It strengthens the pathways that support your behavior and weakens the ones you stop using. This is how identity is built at the neurological level. Your mind is constantly taking notes from your actions, adjusting its beliefs to match what you prove through repetition. Most people underestimate how powerful small behaviors are. They believe change requires dramatic transformation, when in reality the brain is shaped by consistency. One disciplined choice does not change your life, but it changes your self-perception. And self-perception influences the next choice. This creates a loop. Behavior influences belief. Belief influences behavior, and the cycle continues. When the loop is negative, people feel trapped. When the loop is positive, progress accelerates. This is why action is the fastest way to rebuild the mind. You do not argue with your thoughts, you override them. Each time you act despite doubt, fear loses credibility. Each time you follow through, confidence grows. The mind stops resisting when it sees proof. The brain is designed to protect you, not to push you toward growth. It prefers what is familiar, even if that familiarity is limiting. This is why new behavior feels uncomfortable at first. The discomfort is not danger. It is neurological resistance to change. When you push through that resistance, the brain begins to update its internal model of who you are. It starts to see effort as normal, discipline as safe, and challenge as manageable. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes natural. This is not motivation. This is conditioning. You are teaching your brain a new standard through action. Behavior also changes emotional patterns. When you consistently act in alignment with your values, emotional stability increases. Anxiety decreases because your mind trusts you. Frustration decreases because your actions are congruent with your goals. Many emotional struggles are not rooted in circumstance, but in self-betrayal. When you repeatedly avoid what you know you should do, the mind becomes restless and dissatisfied. When you follow through, even imperfectly, the mind settles. This is why action often feels therapeutic. It restores internal alignment. Your mind also learns limits through behavior. If you consistently stop when things get uncomfortable, your brain learns that discomfort is a signal to retreat. If you stay present and continue, your brain learns resilience. Over time, your tolerance expands. What once overwhelmed you becomes manageable. What once intimidated you becomes familiar. This is how strength is built, not through intention, but through exposure and repetition. Behavior rewrites the story you tell yourself. The narrative of "I can't" is dismantled by evidence of "I did." Every completed task, every hard moment endured, every promise kept becomes part of your internal story. This story shapes your future decisions. You begin expecting yourself to rise instead of retreat, and expectation becomes identity. When behavior changes, motivation becomes unnecessary. You no longer wait to feel ready. You move because movement is who you are. Discipline becomes automatic. Focus becomes habitual. This is the power of behavioral identity. You stop fighting your mind and start training it. The mind cannot argue with consistency. Temporary effort may be ignored, but repeated action forces adaptation. This is why change feels slow at first, and then accelerates. The brain resists, then adjusts, then supports. Eventually, It works with you instead of against you. You do not need to fix your mind before you act. You act to fix your mind. This reversal changes everything. You stop waiting. You start becoming. And once behavior rewrites the mind, the person you used to be no longer exists. Chapter 4. Stop waiting to feel ready. Waiting to feel ready is one of the most convincing excuses the mind creates to protect itself from change. Readiness feels responsible, thoughtful, and mature, but in reality, it often disguises fear. The truth is that readiness is not a requirement for action, it is a result of it. Most people who are doing meaningful things in life did not feel prepared when they started. They felt uncertain, nervous, and incomplete, but they moved anyway. Waiting for readiness delays growth because readiness is built through exposure, effort, and repetition. The longer you wait, the more intimidating the action becomes. Your mind fills the gap with doubt, imagined failure, and worst-case scenarios. Over time, what was once manageable feels overwhelming. This is how potential quietly expires, not through lack of ability, but through endless preparation that never becomes participation. The mind wants certainty before commitment, but life does not operate on certainty, it operates on movement. Clarity comes after action, not before it. Confidence follows experience, not intention. When you wait to feel ready, you are asking the future to give you something that only the present can create. This creates a painful loop where you want confidence to act, but need action to build confidence. The only way out of this loop is to move without permission from your emotions. Emotions are unreliable guides for long-term decisions. They change with comfort, mood, and fear. Discipline, on the other hand, does not negotiate. It moves regardless. When you stop waiting for readiness and start acting with intention, your emotions eventually fall into alignment. Many people mistake fear for intuition. They interpret discomfort as a warning rather than a signal of growth. But discomfort is not telling you to stop. It is telling you that you are stepping into something new. Every meaningful change requires you to walk through uncertainty. If you wait until fear disappears, you will wait forever. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to move despite it. When you repeatedly choose action over hesitation, your relationship with fear changes. Fear no longer controls you. It becomes background noise while you build your life. Waiting to feel ready also keeps you emotionally attached to a fantasy version of yourself. You imagine the future you who is confident, skilled, and capable, and you wait to become that person before you act. But that version of you only exists on the other side of effort. You cannot become them by imagining them. You become them by behaving like them before it feels natural. Acting before readiness is how identity shifts. Each step you take strengthens the bridge between who you are and who you are becoming. The cost of waiting is invisible at first, but devastating over time. Months pass, years pass, opportunities close, energy changes, circumstances shift. And one day you realize you have been waiting longer than you have been living. The pain of this realization is heavier than the fear that once held you back. This is why action must come early, not when everything feels safe, but when it feels necessary. Readiness is often confused with perfection. You think you need more knowledge, more skill, more planning. But growth does not reward perfection. It rewards participation. You learn by doing. You improve by failing. You gain strength by struggling. The attempt itself is what prepares you. Every imperfect step builds competence. Every mistake refines direction. Waiting for perfection delays all of this progress. When you stop waiting, momentum begins immediately. Even small actions create movement. Movement creates feedback. Feedback creates adjustment. Adjustment creates mastery. This process only begins when you start, not when you feel ready, but when you decide that readiness is no longer the requirement. Life respects those who move. It responds to effort. It opens doors for those already walking toward them. When you act, opportunities appear that would never reveal themselves to someone standing still. Waiting keeps you invisible to life's possibilities. Stopping the wait also strengthens self-trust. Each time you act without readiness, you prove to yourself that you can handle uncertainty. This builds resilience. You stop seeing yourself as fragile and start seeing yourself as capable. That shift alone can transform your entire future. The version of you who is ready is built by the version of you who begins. They are not separate people. They are connected by action. The moment you move, you start becoming. There will never be a perfect moment. There will only be moments you choose to step into. And those choices determine everything. Stop waiting to feel ready. Start acting like the person who becomes ready through action. Chapter 5. Discipline is the language life understands. Discipline is often misunderstood as punishment, restriction, or suffering, but in reality, it is communication. It is the way you speak to life without using words. Every disciplined action sends a clear message. This is who I am, and this is what I tolerate. Life does not respond to intentions or emotions, it responds to patterns. When you show up consistently, when you keep promises to yourself, when you act even when it is uncomfortable, life adjusts. Opportunities align with reliability. Growth aligns with consistency. Strength aligns with effort. Discipline is not about forcing yourself into misery. It is about aligning your actions with the future you claim to want. And once that alignment becomes visible, life has no choice but to respond. Most people wait for life to motivate them, not realizing that motivation is a reaction to discipline, not a requirement for it. When you act without motivation, you train yourself to move based on values rather than feelings. This is the kind of movement life respects. It is stable. It is predictable. It can be built upon. Discipline turns chaos into structure and effort into identity. Without discipline, even talent collapses. With discipline, even uncertainty becomes manageable. Discipline also builds trust, not just in others, but in yourself. Each time you follow through, your self-trust strengthens. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence. You stop doubting your ability to show up. You stop negotiating with excuses. You know that when you decide, you will act. This certainty creates inner stability. Life responds to that stability by giving you more responsibility. And responsibility, when handled well, becomes opportunity. Life does not test disciplined people to break them. It tests them to prepare them. Discipline signals readiness. It shows that you can carry weight without collapsing. This is why disciplined people often face greater challenges. They are being trained for greater roles. When you understand this, you stop resenting difficulty and start using it. You see struggle as proof that you are capable of more. Discipline also refines your focus. It teaches you to do what matters even when distractions are louder. In a world designed to steal attention, focus becomes a competitive advantage. Discipline protects your attention, and attention shapes your life. What you focus on grows. What you neglect fades. Discipline ensures that what grows is intentional. When discipline becomes part of your identity, decision-making becomes simple. You no longer ask what feels good. You ask what aligns with who you are becoming. This removes confusion. It removes inner conflict. You stop battling yourself. You start moving forward. Discipline is also how you reclaim time. You stop wasting it on habits that offer comfort but steal potential. You begin investing it in actions that compound. Over time, This creates momentum. Momentum makes progress visible. Visible progress reinforces discipline, and the cycle strengthens. Many people fear discipline because they associate it with loss of freedom. In truth, discipline creates freedom. It frees you from dependency on mood. It frees you from distraction. It frees you from regret. The disciplined life is not smaller, it is wider. It opens doors that comfort keeps closed. Discipline also reshapes how others perceive you. Consistency builds respect. Reliability builds trust. People respond differently to those who are disciplined because discipline signals strength. And strength attracts alignment. Life places you where you belong based on how you show up. You do not become disciplined overnight. Discipline is built through repetition. Small acts, done daily, reshape identity. The process is quiet but powerful. And once discipline becomes normal, everything else becomes possible. Life does not argue with discipline. It responds, it rearranges, it rebuilds. And when discipline becomes your language, life understands you clearly. Discipline reshapes your relationship with discomfort. Instead of seeing discomfort as something to escape, you begin seeing it as a signal that you are doing something meaningful. The disciplined person does not wait for conditions to feel ideal. They understand that ideal conditions are built through consistent effort, not discovered by chance. Each time you choose discipline over ease, your tolerance expands. What once felt heavy becomes manageable. What once felt impossible becomes routine. This is how discipline quietly builds strength without announcing it. Over time, your capacity grows, and life responds by offering challenges that match that capacity. Discipline prepares you for the life you are asking for, long before the life arrives. Discipline also teaches patience, a quality that most people lack because they are addicted to immediacy. When you practice discipline, you accept delayed gratification. You invest effort without instant reward. This rewires your expectations. You stop needing constant validation. You stop quitting when results are slow. Life responds to this patience by compounding your effort. What grows slowly becomes strong. What is rushed collapses easily. Discipline is how you align with the rhythm of real growth. A disciplined life removes chaos from the mind. When you know what you will do regardless of how you feel, decision fatigue disappears. You stop wasting energy debating with yourself. Your actions become predictable to you. That predictability creates calm. Calm creates clarity, and clarity allows you to see opportunities others miss because they are distracted by their own inconsistency. Life opens doors for those who are ready to walk through them, not those who hesitate at every step. Discipline also transforms self-image. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who does. This shift is subtle but profound. Trying leaves room for excuses. Doing demands accountability. When you consistently act with discipline, your mind updates its identity. You begin trusting your own strength. And once you trust yourself, fear loses its grip. Life responds to that trust by meeting you at a higher standard. When discipline becomes part of your daily rhythm, motivation becomes irrelevant. You no longer depend on emotional spikes to move forward. You rely on structure. Structure creates stability. Stability creates endurance. And endurance is what carries you through seasons when inspiration fades. Life respects endurance because it signals commitment. Temporary effort impresses no one. Sustained effort changes everything. Discipline also sharpens your boundaries. You become selective about what you allow into your life. You stop tolerating habits, relationships, and routines that weaken you. This is not arrogance. It is self-respect. Boundaries protect your energy, and energy fuels your growth. Life responds to clear boundaries by respecting them. When you respect your own limits, others follow. There is also a quiet dignity in discipline. It does not seek attention. It does not announce itself. It simply shows up, day after day. This consistency creates momentum that outsiders mistake for luck. But there is no luck involved. Life rewards what it can rely on. Discipline makes you reliable. As discipline deepens, your goals evolve. You stop chasing shallow wins and start building lasting foundations. You care less about appearance and more about substance. Life responds by offering depth instead of noise, meaning instead of distraction. You begin attracting opportunities that require maturity rather than impulse. Discipline also strengthens your ability to adapt. Because you are consistent, small disruptions do not derail you. You adjust instead of quitting. You adapt instead of collapsing. Life tests adaptability because adaptability ensures survival and growth. Discipline gives you that adaptability. Over time, discipline becomes less about effort and more about alignment. You are no longer forcing yourself to do what is right. You simply live in accordance with who you have become. This alignment creates peace, not comfort, but confidence. Life eventually places you in rooms that require discipline to stay in. Without it, access is temporary. With it, access becomes permanent. Discipline is what keeps doors open. When discipline becomes your default language, life stops resisting you. It starts cooperating. And at that point, rebuilding is no longer a struggle. It becomes inevitable. Chapter 6. Confidence is built through action. Confidence is not something you wait to feel, it is something you earn through movement. Most people believe confidence should arrive before action, but this belief keeps them trapped. Confidence does not descend from the sky. It is built quietly through repetition, effort, and follow-through. Every time you act despite doubt, your mind records evidence that you are capable. Every time you avoid action, it records evidence that you are fragile. Over time, these records become self-belief. Confidence is not a mood. It is a memory of showing up when it was uncomfortable. And that memory is created only through action. This is why thinking positive thoughts rarely changes anything. Action changes how you see yourself, and how you see yourself determines how you move through life. Fear does not disappear when you wait, it grows. The longer you hesitate, the more power fear gains over your decisions. Action interrupts this process. When you move, fear is forced to adapt. It becomes smaller, quieter, less convincing. You realize that the consequences you imagined were far worse than the reality you faced. Each action weakens fear's authority. Each avoided action strengthens it. Confidence grows in direct proportion to how often you choose action over avoidance. This is not theory, it is lived truth. Action also creates clarity. Many people lack confidence because they lack clarity. They overthink, analyze, and imagine outcomes without testing anything in reality. This keeps them trapped in their own thoughts. Action brings feedback. Feedback brings adjustment. Adjustment brings competence. And competence creates confidence. You do not need to know everything before you begin. You learn by doing. The path reveals itself to those who walk it, not those who wait at the start. Confidence also grows when you keep promises to yourself. Each promise kept strengthens self-trust. Each promise broken weakens it. Self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Without it, you doubt your ability to follow through. Action repairs this trust. Even small actions matter. They prove to your mind that you are reliable, and reliability builds belief. Many people chase confidence through external validation. They seek approval, praise, and reassurance. But external confidence is fragile. It disappears the moment approval fades. Action-based confidence is internal. It remains stable regardless of opinions. When your confidence comes from effort, it cannot be taken away. This is real power. Action also builds resilience. When you act, you encounter obstacles. When you overcome them, you grow stronger. Each challenge becomes proof that you can handle difficulty. Confidence grows not because life becomes easier, but because you become more capable. This is why confident people are not fearless. They are experienced. Waiting to feel confident is a trap. The person who waits will always feel behind. The person who acts, even imperfectly, will always be ahead. Progress does not require confidence. Confidence requires progress. When action becomes your habit, confidence becomes your identity. You stop asking if you can. You know you will figure it out. This certainty changes everything. Confidence is not built in thought. It is built in motion, and the moment you move, it begins. Action does something powerful that thinking never can. It collapses imagination into reality. Most fear exists in the imagined future, not in the present moment. When you act, the mind is forced out of speculation and into experience, and experience is grounding. It replaces exaggerated fears with real feedback. This is why confidence grows fastest when you move. You stop being trapped in your head and start engaging with life as it is. Even when the outcome is not perfect, the simple fact that you acted proves something essential to your mind. You survived. You handled it. You adapted. This survival rewrites your internal narrative from "I can't handle this" to "I can figure this out." And that shift changes everything about how you approach the next challenge. Confidence also strengthens when you stop trying to eliminate uncertainty and start accepting it. Action teaches you that uncertainty is not a threat. It is a condition of growth. You learn that you do not need full control to move forward. You only need willingness. Each step taken without certainty expands your tolerance for the unknown. Over time, uncertainty stops paralyzing you. It becomes familiar. Familiarity reduces fear. Fear loses its authority. And confidence grows naturally, not because life is predictable, but because you trust yourself to respond. Another overlooked source of confidence is competence. Competence is built through repetition. Repetition comes from action. When you practice something repeatedly, your skill improves. As skill improves, confidence stabilizes. This is why confidence built on effort is so durable. It is grounded in ability, not illusion. You know what you can do because you have done it before. This creates quiet assurance rather than loud bravado. Life responds to this kind of confidence because it is rooted in reality, not performance. Action also teaches humility, and humility strengthens confidence rather than weakening it. When you act, you make mistakes. When you survive mistakes, you stop fearing them. You realize that failure is not the opposite of confidence. Avoidance is. Each mistake becomes proof that imperfection does not destroy you. This frees you to try again without shame. And freedom from shame is a powerful confidence booster. You stop protecting your ego and start building your life. As confidence grows through action, your standards rise. You stop tolerating behaviors that weaken you. You stop accepting excuses from yourself. Not out of harshness, but out of respect. You have evidence now, evidence that you are capable of more. And once you have that evidence, settling becomes uncomfortable. Confidence does not make you arrogant. It makes you honest about what you owe yourself. Action-based confidence also changes how you carry yourself. Your posture shifts, your voice steadies, your decisions become firmer. Not because you are forcing it, but because your internal alignment has changed. You trust yourself. Life notices this trust. People respond differently. Opportunities appear differently. This is not magic. It is consistency made visible. When you rely on action to build confidence, setbacks lose their power to define you. A bad day does not erase your progress. A failure does not collapse your identity. You understand that confidence is cumulative. One moment does not undo a pattern. This perspective creates emotional stability, and emotional stability allows long-term growth. Confidence also deepens when you stop seeking certainty of success and start committing to effort regardless of outcome. You realize that your worth is not tied to winning every time. It is tied to showing up fully. This removes pressure. Pressure kills confidence. Commitment builds it. When you commit to effort, you are already successful in the only way that matters. Eventually, confidence becomes less about feeling brave and more about being reliable. You know you will act when it matters. You know you will not abandon yourself. This self-reliance is powerful. It does not shout. It stands firm. Confidence built through action does not fade with circumstances. It grows stronger with experience. And once it is rooted in you, life has no choice but to respond to the person you have become. Chapter 7. How life responds to who you become. Life does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to who you consistently show yourself to be. This is a truth most people resist because it removes excuses and places responsibility directly on identity. When you change who you are being, the world around you begins to shift in subtle but undeniable ways. Opportunities appear that once felt invisible. Challenges arise that match your new level. People treat you differently, not because they suddenly changed, but because you did. Life is not emotional. It is responsive. It mirrors your standards, your boundaries, your discipline, and your courage. When you carry yourself with intention, life aligns with that intention. When you tolerate less, life offers more. This is not coincidence or luck. It is alignment. Life is constantly asking one question: who are you becoming? And it answers that question with experiences that match the person you are shaping through action. When you operate from a weak identity, life feels heavy and resistant. Everything seems harder than it should be. You feel unseen, undervalued, and stuck. But when your identity strengthens, resistance begins to transform into refinement. Life stops blocking you and starts testing you. Tests are not punishments, they are confirmations. They exist to see if you can handle the level you are asking for. When you become disciplined, life gives you responsibility. When you become focused, life gives you complexity. When you become resilient, life gives you pressure. This is how growth is delivered. Life does not hand you outcomes. It hands you challenges that shape you into the person capable of sustaining those outcomes. Your environment also responds to who you become. When you raise your standards, certain situations and relationships fall away naturally, not because you force them out, but because they no longer fit. At the same time, new environments begin to form around you. Spaces where growth is expected, where discipline is normal, where effort is respected. This transition can feel lonely at first, but it is necessary. Life reorganizes your surroundings to match your identity. If you resist this process, you remain stuck between versions of yourself. But if you trust it, your environment begins supporting your evolution instead of draining it. Life also responds to clarity. When your identity is unclear, your path feels scattered. You chase too many things, hesitate too often, and doubt your direction. But when you become clear about who you are and what you stand for, life becomes clearer in return. Decisions simplify, opportunities align, distractions lose their grip. Clarity attracts alignment because it removes confusion. Life responds best to those who know where they are going, even if they do not yet know how they will get there. As you become more consistent, life begins offering consistency back. Progress becomes predictable. Effort compounds. Momentum builds. This is why disciplined people often appear lucky. Their identity makes them reliable, and life rewards reliability. It invests in those who invest in themselves. Life does not gamble on inconsistency. It builds with those who show up. When you change internally, your tolerance for chaos decreases. You stop accepting instability, disrespect, and self-sabotage. Life responds by removing what no longer aligns. This process can feel uncomfortable, but it is protective. Life is clearing space for what matches your new identity. Life also responds to courage. When you act despite fear, life meets you with growth. Courage signals readiness. It tells life you are willing to carry more. And life responds by expanding your capacity through experience. Eventually, life stops pushing and starts partnering. Things flow more naturally. Not because effort disappears, but because resistance dissolves. You are aligned. Life does not change first. You do. And once you do, life has no choice but to respond. As your identity strengthens, life begins to remove friction that once felt permanent. Situations that used to drain you no longer hold the same power. You stop feeling pulled in 1,000 directions because your inner direction has stabilized. Life responds to this stability by simplifying your path, not by making it easier, but by making it clearer. Confusion fades when identity becomes firm. You no longer chase what looks attractive but does not align. This clarity saves you years of wasted effort and emotional exhaustion. Life rewards clarity because clarity signals maturity. When you become someone who honors your word, life begins to honor your commitments. Opportunities that require reliability start appearing. People trust you with responsibility. Projects move forward instead of stalling. This is not favoritism, it is alignment. Life builds with those who can be depended on. Consistency creates momentum, and momentum attracts opportunity. Inconsistency repels it. When your identity becomes dependable, life responds by offering paths that require endurance rather than luck. Life also responds to emotional strength. When you stop reacting impulsively and start responding intentionally, your reality changes. Conflict decreases. Drama loses its grip. You become grounded. Life mirrors that grounding by becoming less chaotic. You realize that many problems were not external, they were reflections of internal instability. As you become steady, life becomes manageable. Emotional discipline shapes external order. As you grow, life begins to raise expectations. This is often misunderstood as punishment. In truth, it is recognition. Life does not burden those who are unprepared. It challenges those who are ready. Increased pressure is a sign of growth, not failure. When you interpret pressure correctly, you stop resisting it and start using it. Pressure refines character. Character attracts alignment. Life responds strongly to boundaries. When you stop tolerating what weakens you, life removes it. When you protect your time and energy, life respects them. Boundaries are declarations of identity. They say, "This is who I am now." Life listens to those declarations and rearranges accordingly. Without boundaries, life overwhelms. With boundaries, life cooperates. Your inner dialogue also influences how life responds. When you stop speaking to yourself with doubt and start acting from self-respect, your reality shifts. You carry yourself differently. Others sense it. Situations adjust. Life reflects the relationship you have with yourself. When that relationship improves, so does everything else. Life responds to courage in quiet ways. It does not always announce change. Sometimes it gives you a small opening and waits to see if you step through. Those who hesitate miss it. Those who move expand it. Courage creates momentum. Momentum creates transformation. As identity stabilizes, patience grows. You stop rushing outcomes. You trust the process because you trust yourself. Life responds to patience by compounding effort. What once felt slow becomes unstoppable. Eventually, life stops feeling like something you fight. It becomes something you work with. Resistance turns into cooperation. Struggle turns into structure. Life was never against you. It was waiting for you to become ready, and once you do, it responds completely. Chapter 8. Rebuilding yourself from the inside out. Rebuilding yourself from the inside out begins with accepting that external changes alone will never be enough. You can change your environment, your routine, even your appearance, but if your inner world remains the same, life will eventually pull you back to old patterns. True rebuilding starts internally, where beliefs are formed, emotions are processed, and identity is shaped. This requires honesty, not performance. You must be willing to face the parts of yourself you once avoided, not to judge them, but to understand them. The inner world controls the outer world far more than most people realize. When your inner foundation is weak, no external success can stabilize you. But when the foundation is strong, everything else can be built on top of it with confidence. The first step in internal rebuilding is awareness. You must become conscious of your thoughts, reactions, and habits. Not to control them immediately, but to observe them without denial. Awareness breaks autopilot. It creates space between impulse and action. In that space, choice appears, and choice is where transformation begins. Most people live reactively, driven by patterns they never question. Rebuilding requires you to step out of reaction and into intention. You cannot rebuild without releasing old identities. Many people cling to who they were because it feels familiar, even if it hurts. Letting go of outdated identities feels like loss, but it is actually liberation. You are not erasing yourself. You are updating yourself. Growth requires you to outgrow old versions that no longer serve your future. Rebuilding also demands emotional responsibility. You stop blaming circumstances for your inner state. You stop expecting others to regulate your emotions. You learn how to sit with discomfort, process it, and move forward without numbing or escaping. This emotional maturity becomes a powerful source of stability. Life becomes less overwhelming when you are no longer fighting your own emotions. As your inner world strengthens, your self-talk changes. You stop speaking to yourself with doubt and contempt. You begin communicating with firmness and respect. This shift rewires your confidence. The way you speak internally becomes the way you act externally. Rebuilding from within also means redefining success. It is no longer about approval or appearance. It becomes about alignment, integrity, and peace. You begin measuring progress by how grounded you feel, rather than how impressed others are. Inner rebuilding also sharpens discernment. You become more selective about what you allow into your life. You protect your mental and emotional space. This protection preserves your growth. Over time, your inner stability becomes visible externally. Your decisions become clearer. Your actions become calmer. Your presence becomes grounded. Others feel it, even if they cannot explain it. Rebuilding from the inside out is not fast, but it is real, and real change lasts. When the inside is rebuilt, the outside has no choice but to follow. Rebuilding yourself from the inside out also means healing the relationship you have with your past. Many people try to grow while still carrying unresolved guilt, shame, regret, or resentment. These inner weights quietly sabotage progress. You cannot build a strong future while constantly reliving an unhealed past. Rebuilding does not require forgetting what happened. It requires understanding it without letting it define you. When you extract lessons instead of carrying wounds, your past becomes a source of wisdom instead of pain. This shift changes how you move forward. You stop punishing yourself for who you were and start empowering yourself for who you are becoming. Inner rebuilding requires you to slow down enough to listen. Silence becomes necessary, not silence as emptiness, but silence as clarity. When external noise fades, internal truth becomes audible. You begin recognizing patterns, desires, and fears you once ignored. This awareness is uncomfortable at first, but it is essential. You cannot fix what you refuse to see. The more honestly you listen to yourself, the more accurately you can rebuild. Rebuilding from within also strengthens intuition. When your inner world is chaotic, intuition is drowned out by fear and impulse. But as emotional clarity grows, intuition becomes sharper. You start making decisions that feel grounded rather than reactive. Life begins flowing with less resistance because you are no longer fighting yourself internally. Another layer of inner rebuilding is learning self-trust. Many people do not trust themselves because they have repeatedly abandoned their own needs. Rebuilding requires you to keep small promises to yourself. Each promise kept restores trust. Over time, that trust becomes confidence, and confidence becomes calm. Inner rebuilding also changes how you experience solitude. You no longer fear being alone because you are no longer at war with yourself. Solitude becomes a place of restoration instead of discomfort. This independence strengthens you emotionally and mentally. You stop needing constant validation. As your inner structure strengthens, emotional triggers lose their power. Situations that once overwhelmed you now feel manageable. You respond instead of react. This emotional stability is one of the clearest signs of true rebuilding. Rebuilding from within also refines patience. You stop rushing outcomes. You respect the process. You understand that real growth compounds quietly. This patience protects you from burnout and disappointment. Your values become clearer as well. You stop chasing everything and start committing to what matters. Inner clarity creates outer direction. Direction reduces anxiety. Anxiety fades when purpose is present. Eventually, rebuilding becomes less about fixing and more about maintaining alignment. You no longer feel broken. You feel grounded, strong, capable. The inside no longer collapses under pressure. It supports you. And when that happens, rebuilding is complete. Not because life is perfect, but because you are whole. Chapter 9. Holding the identity when it gets hard. Holding your identity when life becomes difficult is where transformation is truly tested. Anyone can act strong when conditions are easy, when motivation is high, and when progress is visible. The real challenge begins when results slow down, resistance increases, and doubt returns. This is the moment most people abandon the person they decided to become and retreat to old habits. Not because the new identity was wrong, but because it was unfamiliar. Difficulty exposes whether your identity is conditional or committed. When hardship arrives, it asks a single question: is this who you are only when it's convenient, or is this who you are no matter what? Holding the identity during discomfort is what turns intention into character. Character is not built in moments of ease. It is built when you choose consistency despite fatigue, frustration, and uncertainty. When things get hard, the mind looks for escape. It suggests shortcuts, excuses, and justifications to return to comfort. This is not weakness, it is conditioning. The old identity was built over years of repetition, and it will fight to survive. Understanding this is critical. Struggle does not mean you are failing, it means you are transitioning. The discomfort you feel is the friction between who you were and who you are becoming. If you retreat during this phase, the old identity regains control. If you stay, even imperfectly, the new identity strengthens. Growth always demands endurance before it offers reward. Holding your identity requires you to detach from immediate results. Progress is rarely linear. There will be periods where effort does not seem to produce visible change. This is where faith in your identity becomes essential. You must trust the process, even when feedback is delayed. When you continue acting in alignment with your values despite silence from life, you prove that your identity is real. This proof deepens self-respect, and self-respect is stronger than motivation. Pressure reveals who you are. When stress increases, habits surface. This is why discipline matters most when you are tired. This is why integrity matters most when no one is watching. Holding your identity under pressure trains resilience. You learn that you can endure discomfort without collapsing. Each time you endure, your capacity expands. What once overwhelmed you becomes manageable. What once tempted you to quit loses its power. Many people believe strength is loud and aggressive. In reality, strength is quiet consistency. It is showing up again when enthusiasm fades. It is choosing standards over emotions. It is continuing without applause. This quiet strength builds something unshakable. Life responds to those who do not abandon themselves when things get hard. Holding your identity also means accepting that setbacks do not define you. A mistake is not a collapse. A bad day is not a failure. When your identity is strong, you interpret setbacks as part of the process rather than evidence against yourself. This perspective prevents emotional spirals. You correct course instead of quitting. This ability to recover quickly is a powerful form of confidence. The moment you hold your identity through difficulty, something shifts internally. You stop fearing hard seasons because you trust yourself to handle them. You realize that your strength is not situational. It is internal. And once that realization settles, fear loses its grip. Eventually, what once felt hard becomes normal. The discipline that once required effort becomes automatic. The identity you struggled to hold becomes who you are. This is how transformation completes itself. Hard moments do not destroy identity, they reveal it. And when you hold yours, no matter the pressure, life has no choice but to recognize it. When the pressure increases, your old identity will try to negotiate. It will tell you that one break will not matter, that one exception is harmless, that you deserve relief. These thoughts are subtle, not aggressive, which makes them dangerous. Holding your identity in these moments requires awareness. You must recognize that discipline is being tested, not because you are weak, but because you are growing. Growth attracts resistance. Resistance reveals commitment. Every time you refuse to negotiate with your standards, your identity hardens. You are teaching yourself that who you are does not change based on mood or difficulty. This lesson becomes deeply embedded over time, creating inner stability that no circumstance can easily shake. Hard moments also reveal the difference between motivation and commitment. Motivation is emotional and temporary. Commitment is structural and enduring. When things get hard, motivation fades first. Commitment remains. Holding your identity means relying on commitment rather than emotion. You continue because this is who you are, not because it feels good. This distinction is critical. It separates people who transform temporarily from those who transform permanently. Life responds to permanence. It rewards those who do not abandon themselves when the initial excitement disappears. Another challenge during hardship is isolation. When you grow beyond your old identity, Not everyone around you will understand the change. Some may question it, some may resist it. Some may try to pull you back to who you were. Holding your identity in these moments requires internal validation. You must stop seeking approval from those who only know your past. Growth often feels lonely before it feels rewarding. This loneliness is not punishment. It is space being created for your new life. Holding your identity also requires compassion toward yourself. Discipline does not mean cruelty. It means direction. When things get hard, you must avoid turning struggle into self-judgment. You are allowed to feel tired. You are allowed to feel uncertain. What matters is that you do not let those feelings dictate your actions. Compassion allows you to rest without quitting. It allows you to adjust without abandoning your values. This balance is essential for long-term consistency. In difficult seasons, routines become anchors. When everything feels uncertain, structure provides stability. Simple, repeated actions keep you grounded. They remind you of who you are when emotions try to confuse you. This is why identity must be practiced daily, not just believed. Practice reinforces belief. Belief reinforces behavior. And behavior reinforces identity. Holding your identity also changes how you interpret pain. Pain is no longer proof that something is wrong. It becomes proof that something is happening. You stop fearing discomfort and start respecting it. Discomfort becomes a signpost pointing toward growth. This reframing removes panic and replaces it with patience. You understand that struggle is temporary, but identity is permanent. Over time, the difficulty that once tested you becomes the very thing that strengthens you. You look back and realize that the hardest moments were the ones that shaped your character most deeply. They forced you to choose who you were when it mattered, and you chose to stay. Eventually, holding your identity becomes less conscious. It becomes automatic. You no longer debate whether to show up. You simply do. The identity is no longer fragile. It is embodied. At that point, life stops challenging you to see if you will quit. It challenges you to see how far you can go. Hard times no longer threaten who you are. They confirm it. And the identity you hold under pressure becomes the foundation of everything you build next. Chapter 10. Become the person life has to respect. Life does not respect titles, words, or intentions. It respects consistency, integrity, and strength of character. Becoming the person life has to respect is not about dominance or ego. It is about reliability. When you do what you say you will do, when you show up regardless of mood, when you hold your standards without external pressure, life begins responding differently. Respect is earned through behavior repeated over time. It is not demanded. It is demonstrated. The person life respects is not the loudest or the most confident on the surface, but the one who is internally aligned. Alignment creates authority. Authority creates presence. And presence changes everything about how the world responds to you. Respect begins with self-respect. You cannot expect life to value you if you do not value your own time, energy, and potential. When you stop tolerating habits that weaken you, life notices. When you protect your focus, life rewards it with clarity. When you honor your commitments, life expands them. This is how respect compounds. It starts internally and moves outward. Life mirrors the relationship you have with yourself. If you treat yourself as optional, life will do the same. If you treat yourself as someone worth investing in, life follows that lead. Becoming respected by life requires discipline that does not collapse under pressure. Anyone can act strong when conditions are easy. The person life respects remains consistent when no one is watching, when progress is slow, and when temptation is loud. This consistency builds gravity. People feel it, Circumstances respond to it. You no longer need to prove yourself. Your actions speak before you do. Life responds to this quiet authority by opening doors that remain closed to those who waver. Life also respects clarity. When you know who you are and what you stand for, confusion fades. You stop chasing everything and start committing to what matters. This commitment simplifies your life. It removes distraction. It sharpens direction. Life responds by aligning opportunities with your values instead of testing your patience. Clarity is not rigidity, it is focus. And focus is one of the most respected forces in existence. Respect is also built through resilience. When you fall and rise without bitterness, life takes notice. When you adapt instead of collapse, life adjusts to meet you. Resilience signals readiness. It shows that you can handle complexity without losing yourself. This is why resilient people are trusted with greater responsibility. Life does not give weight to those who break easily. It gives weight to those who endure and evolve. Becoming someone life respects also means refusing to perform for approval. You stop shaping your identity around reactions. You stop shrinking to fit expectations. You move according to principle rather than popularity. This independence strengthens your presence. Life responds to those who stand on their own foundation. Approval seeking weakens authority. Self-alignment strengthens it. Respect grows when your actions are congruent across situations. You are the same person in private as you are in public. This integrity removes internal conflict. Without conflict, energy becomes focused. Focus becomes momentum. Momentum becomes progress. Life respects coherence. It invests in those who are internally unified. As you become this person, resistance decreases. Not because life becomes easy, but because you are no longer fighting yourself. You move with intention. You respond instead of react. You lead instead of wait. Life responds by cooperating rather than obstructing. Eventually, you stop asking life to respect you. You feel it in how things unfold, in how opportunities arrive, in how challenges shape you instead of breaking you. You do not force respect. You become it. And once you do, life has no choice but to meet you at that level. Becoming the person life respects also means mastering restraint. Power is not always shown through action. Often it is shown through what you refuse to do. You stop reacting impulsively. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop engaging in battles that cost you more than they give. This restraint communicates confidence without words. Life responds to restraint by offering situations that require wisdom instead of force. When you no longer chase validation, you conserve energy. That conserved energy becomes clarity. And clarity strengthens your presence. People sense when someone is not desperate to be seen. Life senses it too. Respect grows in the space between reaction and response. Life also respects those who can endure boredom and monotony without losing direction. Many people collapse not under pressure, but under repetition. They crave excitement more than progress. The person life respects understands that mastery is built through routine. They show up on ordinary days with the same seriousness as extraordinary ones. This consistency signals maturity. Life responds by compounding effort quietly. Results begin to appear not in bursts, but in stability. Stability is a form of power few possess, and power attracts alignment. Another mark of respect is emotional sovereignty. You stop allowing external events to dictate your inner state. Praise does not inflate you. Criticism does not destroy you. This emotional independence creates balance. Life responds to balance by reducing chaos. When you are no longer easily shaken, circumstances lose leverage. You become adaptable rather than reactive. Adaptability is deeply respected because it ensures survival in changing environments. Life also respects humility paired with competence. Arrogance collapses under challenge. Humility learns and evolves. When you remain teachable while being disciplined, life opens doors to deeper growth. You stop assuming you know everything. You listen, you refine, you improve. Life responds to this posture by offering lessons instead of obstacles. Growth becomes cooperative rather than combative. Becoming respected by life also requires courage to stand alone. There will be moments when your values isolate you, when your standards separate you, when your discipline makes you misunderstood. Holding your ground in these moments signals strength. Life responds by eventually surrounding you with alignment instead of approval. Temporary isolation often precedes long-term respect. Life respects those who finish what they start. Completion is rare. Many begin with intensity and abandon with excuses. When you commit to seeing things through, even when enthusiasm fades, life begins trusting you with longer paths and bigger roles. Completion builds credibility. Credibility attracts opportunity. Opportunity rewards commitment. Respect also grows when you accept consequences without complaint. You stop blaming outcomes on others. You own results, both good and bad. This ownership creates authority. Life responds to authority by reducing resistance. When you accept responsibility fully, you become someone life can build with, rather than work against. As respect deepens, life stops testing your resolve and starts testing your capacity. The challenges change in nature. They become heavier, but more meaningful. You are no longer being asked if you will quit. You are being asked how much you can carry. This is a sign of evolution. Eventually, respect becomes invisible but undeniable. You feel it in the way situations unfold, in how effort translates into progress, in how obstacles refine rather than exhaust you. You move with certainty, not arrogance. You no longer ask life for permission. You move as someone who belongs where they are. And life, recognizing that identity, responds accordingly. In the end, life does not reward intentions, it responds to identity. The moment you stop waiting to feel different and start acting as if you already are, something shifts. Your choices change. Your standards rise. And slowly, the world around you begins to mirror the person you've decided to become. You don't rebuild your life by hoping. You rebuild it by showing up differently, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when the results are not immediate. Acting as if is not about forcing outcomes, it's about becoming someone strong enough to handle them. So don't wait for proof, don't wait for permission. Decide who you are now, and move as that person would move. Because once you commit to that identity, life has no choice but to rebuild you around it.